everyone. Welcome back to Just Another Rant, a podcast where we just rant about everything. I'm Quinn,
My
and today we have a special guest with us. Please say hi.
Hi everyone, I'm Uyên. Gwen and I know each other since high school, but we didn't really start talking until the beginning of this year. And then she introduced me to Mai, so it's safe to say that she's very responsible for the creation of this tiny book club.
Yes, I would take full credit for that. And as you can tell from the title, the first book that we read together is Norwegian Wood because I was forcing Mai and Uyên to read it with me. I was pointing a gun at their head. I was like, we have to do this. So Norwegian Wood. And how about we each like introduce ourselves as like readers and how we rate and like what is our taste in literature?
Okay, so Murakami is an author that was very, 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 and still very, very, very popular among high schoolers. Well, not just high schooler, but even in middle school, I saw people reading Murakami, and I never understood that because I never read Murakami in high school or in middle school. So now that when Joe's Norwegian Wood for the first book of her book club, I had to jump in and read this book. So this is my fourth Murakami. I don't know what else to say. It's not my first time reading him. And before that, I've already read South of the Border, West of the Sun. I've read After the Quake, and I've read What I Talk About Running, which is sort of like semi-autobiography of Murakami. So yeah, and my rating system is basically just based on how I feel after finishing the book. Like if I feel like shit, I'm gonna give you like 1 star. And if it makes me feel really, really good, like oh my god, this is amazing, this is the most amazing thing I've ever read, and you get a 5 star. It's very, very simple for me. What about you, Uy?
Oh, for me, I've always liked books that deal with human emotion and the nuance and rawness that come with it. So basically, when I was in high school and up until now, Murakami has always been a very popular writer, probably the most popular Japanese writer, right? So, like, two of my favorite authors are Sally Rooney and Frederick Backman.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's how we actually bonded.
Yes,
Because
from normal people, right?
yeah, from Normal People. Like I think Normal People kickstarted my reading phase, and I uploaded like on my Instagram story of me reading Normal People by Sally Rooney, and Wayne DM me or like reply to my story, and that's how we actually started talking.
Yeah, I was like forcing you to read Beautiful World that I was reading at the time.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so the one thing about Murakami is that he create very like relatable characters. Norwegian Wood is a very dangerous novel because it had a certain sense of universal appeal. It had the ability to speak to many readers as they compare their own situation to that depicted in the novel. Maybe in real life it's less dramatic, but the need to move on being weak against a past that hangs over us, whatever that past may be, is a dilemma most of us will have to face. So I understand why it's the most beloved novel of Murakami, but I will stand by saying that I really hate the novel.
Wow, because you gave this a 3 star on Goodreads, if I'm not mistaken. So I wouldn't expect to hear that, oh, I hate this book. Because I gave it a 2 star, which is like, well, my 2 stars is can be a little bit dramatic. Like I don't think it's bad. I just don't enjoy it that much. So it's surprising to hear that you don't you didn't enjoy it that much too either.
It's very conflicting for me to give it a 3 star, but the 3 star, like the 2 out of the 3 star that I give this novel is based on Murakami writing style alone. Like this book hit me in the gut with full force. Like it constantly wish between making me feel angry, sad, annoyed and disgusted and nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of like indicative of good writing in a sense that they can provoke emotions from the reader. I give this book 4 stars, and the way I rate books is it's like a mixture between like how much I enjoy it and whether I think it served a purpose. Like, did it deliver what it set out to deliver? I might not like it, but if it delivered, sure, like I'll give you more points for that, brownie points. So I give this one 4 star. I really like the writing. I think Wing said it really well in like like the nice things about Murakami writing. And I really liked his writing. And yeah, I must say though, this one is like the most popular Murakami book, I believe. This is my first Murakami, and it's the most popular one. It's very heavy. Like the themes are like there's like quite a bit of trigger warnings, like suiciding, what else? Pedophile, um, mental health. Yeah, weird sex as well. If you're not comfortable with like weird sex, like we are, you will hate it. And not that I don't think it's like excessive, like with how like dark and like heavy and like like a lot of people died. I think it's important to tackle these kind of themes because if we don't talk about it, like nothing is going to get solved, I guess. I think like the more we get to talk about mental health and young people struggles, the more we get closer to something. Yeah, whatever that means. I honestly don't know what it means. But if you're uncomfortable with it and you like Japanese literature, go and read Banana Yoshimoto. She's like my favorite Japanese author. So yeah.
Oh, and full disclosure, we're gonna spoil everything. So if you don't want to get spoiled, just skip this episode and return to it when you have read the book.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna discuss pretty much everything, right?
Hopefully.
So let's start with the plot, or at least what this book is about.
Okay, so I will read the blurb at the back of the book, so that you guys will get a sense of what it is. So the blurb says, when he hears her favorite Beatles song, Toru Wanatabe recalls his first love, Naoko, the girlfriend of his best friend Kizuki. Immediately, he is transported back almost 20 years ago to his student day in Tokyo, adrift in a world of uneasy friendships, casual sex, passion, loss, and desire, to a time when an impetuous young woman called Midori marched into his life, and he had to choose between the future and the past. Do you guys think the blurb really like reflect the story well?
I guess. I
For
don't
me,
know.
no. For
No?
me, like reading the blurb doesn't really tell me anything about the novel. It gives me a very like incorrect idea about the novel actually is about.
I agree. It was giving me like love triangle vibes, and I don't think the love triangle was like serving anything in this book. Like it was very minor.
Like
Yeah.
there's a love triangle, but like it's not the point of the book, right? And if you read the blurb, you might think that, oh, this book is about a love story, and this guy has to choose between his old girlfriend and his new girlfriend, right? And it's not really what Norwegian Wood is about. But I guess this is good marketing for them.
Yeah, I think romance, like in general, sell really well. People love it. People love a love story.
And I think like the blurb, because like one of the reason why many like readers perceive Norwegian Wood as a romance novel is because of the blurb. Like it directs the reader into a very like opposite direction of what Murakami is trying to say.
Yeah. I already knew before I read this book, I already knew of the themes and I looked up the trigger warnings, but I cannot imagine like going to the bookstore and thinking this is a love story, a romance novel, and I read it, I'll be like, what the fuck, y'all? Like, this is not a love story, guys.
So can you tell us what it's about? if it's not, a love triangle, what is it?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Yes, go.
Okay, so the novel starts with Toru and Naoko dealing with the aftermath of the suicide of their male friend Kizuki when he was 17. Like until then, the two boys and the girl had been an inseparable, threesome. God.
What?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
A
kind of.
threesome?
I can't find another better
No,
way to
I
say
think
it.
that's accurate. Let's go ahead and employ that term. Okay, go on. Uy.
Okay, earlier, it's safe to mention that earlier the girl's sister has also committed suicide. She is so stricken that she elects to go to a sanitarium until she can deal with life again. At times, both characters say they have word-searching sickness, the inability to put the feeling into words. Toru feels he's responsible for the girl in the sanitarium and can't make the break to commit to another young woman that he has fallen in love with. There is a story within the story from another woman at the facility. She has been a piano teacher, and the story is of a lesbian relationship. There's a lot of sex in the book with little actual intercourse. Like, you have to read it to see what it means. The book is set in 1969. Many of the characters are in college against a background of student revolt, students taking over classroom and university closing. There's a lot of talk of maths and communism, and Murakami was in college in Japan at this time. Yeah, this
Yeah.
book is essentially about two things: sex and death. There are hidden meanings everywhere, but when you cut away that and go to the core, that's what's left. Oh my, the books have a lot of sex and weird forms of sex and a lot of them not in a good way either. So yeah, that's basically my take from the summary of the book.
Well, thank you. For me, is if I had to describe it for a reader who has never read Norwegian Wood, I would say this is a book about a man trying to find himself, trying to find himself basically. And we followed him from his days in high school to his days in college, and it was basically his journey to his own identity. But at the same time, during that journey, he has a lot of sex with a lot of women. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. I cannot even remember the amount of women that he has sex with in this book. And every time is some combination of like lewdness and like just strange. It's very strange sex, because I remember Midori kind of like talked about sex to him, but like in a very strange way. So I don't really understand why Murakami would include that. To me, it's totally unnecessary. And I say this all the time, but the theme is really good. I really like the theme. But all of the weird sex, all of the unnecessary sexual things, I don't understand why you would include that in this book, because it's totally unnecessary. In my opinion, it would have been a much better book without all the weird sex.
I think the sex was too much for me. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm asexual, but it's so weird the way he
No.
writes about
Oh,
sex.
it's definitely not because of your asexuality.
I don't think it was like bad in the sense that like when you read romance novels and they write about sex and it's really bad. Like, it's not the same kind of bad. He maintained the same tone, the same kind of like style of writing, but the sex was so weird. The way he describes like their body colliding, or like what Toru was thinking during the sex, and the conversation they have during, after, and even before sex is so fucking bizarre to me. I don't think I've ever had that kind of conversation in real life before.
Like, can you give us an example?
I don't remember. I don't think I tapped any of the weird sex scene because I was just like, I have to get this out of my system.
Like the weird sex scene was there because Murakami is the epitome of the male gaze. He set a very regressive way of writing about women. And his writing of like the sex scene appeared to me as a pornography like scene, you know?
Always this very objectifying gaze on the women, every woman in this entire novel, and I just cannot deal with it. So every time Murakami describes like sex or describe the body of a woman, is very uncomfortable for me because you know realizing that this could be how men around me view women, it makes it a little bit unsafe. If I just feel unsafe. That's how I felt reading this book. A little bit unsafe, a little bit uncomfortable. The constant thought in my mind was like, oh my God, what if, the men in my life thought this? What if they actually, have these thoughts? That would be terrifying, right?
Do you guys agree that half the book is about the objectification of women?
I mean, it makes up a bulk of it because there's a lot of sex and like I feel like a lot Toru ways of figuring out himself was to have casual sex. And the interaction between him and like the male characters and like also the female characters makes me kind of want to die a little on the inside because this book is incredibly popular with like
Among high school students.
yeah, amongst like boys and like men in general too. So it makes me feel like what if this is the kind of behavior or this is the kind of thinking that they're employing or they kind of like enjoy.
I see it as a warning if any male friends or like person I know say they love Murakami or like Murakami is their favorite authors. I can't tolerate that.
Like, I wouldn't go so far as saying like liking Murakami is a red flag. I wouldn't go that far. I do think that his writing is very pleasant. But if you read Murakami without questioning his sexist views, then in that case, that is a red flag.
I think that it's okay if a male like appreciate Murakami's work, but they should appreciate it with the knowledge of his sexualization of women.
Yeah, I think you can be critical about the things you love, which is I think we should include an interview between Murakami and Miyako Kawagami, which is a quite famous, I think she's really famous actually, a really famous feminist author, and she loves Murakami.
But it's so frustrating though. Like that entire interview is basically
I know. That's why
dodging
I was
everything.
like, people should read that interview because the way she like asked the questions were like very direct and like very like thought provoking. But the way he answers it boils my blood. It's just like, oh my God, you could have said something else. But anyways, I think that interview was interesting.
To me, I feel like she's a little bit too big of a fan.
Yeah, I think
the way that she asks is like,
I feel like Miyako Kawakami was trying to lighten up her criticism toward his work.
Exactly. I was like,
I think so.
You don't need to do this. And and I don't know why she would do that. Maybe it's Japanese culture, maybe it's just her personality. I don't know. It feels to me like, oh, this is such a big fan, like trying to praise him, trying to downplay a little bit of the sexism. But she did ask him, to the point. But the most frustrating thing is that he always dodges the questions. Like
a lot of the time he said that it doesn't matter if it's like the gender, like male or female. It's more like I see them as human first. And I'm like, dude.
Oh my God, that is the typical response to criticism or like confrontations.
Yeah.
Criticism.
Like when you ask white people about their allegedly racist tweets or something like that, they will be like, I don't see color. It's the same to me. It doesn't matter if it's black or white. Okay, it's very typical. But anyway, that interview was frustrating, but we're going to leave the link down below. I think it's important that people know about this. and that people becomes critical of him. Because I've read what I talk about when I talk about running, which is his sort of autobiography, but not really. He rarely gives out interview. So this is kind of like our only sort of information about himself that he wrote. And I have to tell you, a lot of the things that you hate about Toru or the protagonist of South the Border, West of the Sun, I can never remember that title. A lot of things that you hate about those two protagonists are basically the qualities of Murakami himself. Like a lot, I'm not saying that Toru is Murakami, obviously not. I don't think Murakami was having sex with like a bunch of women in the 60s. I don't think so. But I do think he puts a lot of himself in his male characters and his male protagonists. And we can definitely see he thinking the same way or acting the same way in his own writing about himself, in his own semi-autobiographical book. And that's when I think if I had not read that book, I would be so much more in doubt when criticizing him. But after having read that book, I feel like more sure about my criticism of him. So yeah, that is also a book that I recommend.
Okay, so get back to Norwegian Wood because we haven't really talked much about it. So I think like the turning point was when Kizuki suicided, and Naoko, who was Kizuki's girlfriend at the time, and Toru, who was his best friend, kind of like ended up together. Like they are left in the world just together, and they formed this kind of bond. Yeah, and it's like it was really good in the first two chapters or so when Murakami was like exploring grief at such a young age, and then he was talking like from Toru perspective about like how pointless he finds life in colleges, and like he had no ambition. And I was like, this is so good, can you keep it going? But then yeah,
Oh,
things,
went downhill from there.
yeah, it kind of went down. He started fucking, so
A
yeah.
lot, non-stop, basically. In every chapter there is.
I do kind of cut him some slack because I had a horror phase quite recently, and I know how it feels. Kind of like
But do you
the
cheat on people?
no.
See,
Was that Midori, or are you referring to Toru?
I'm talking about both of them.
Basically, Toru and Naoko were dating, but he kind of established his like love toward her already.
Yeah, he keeps saying he loves her.
Yes, and do you guys recognize that Toru have the same affection toward everyone, male or female?
Yeah.
Yes,
No.
like he
He
like read them with the same fascination and interest.
Mhm.
He doesn't show any particular like affection toward anyone. Yeah,
Yeah,
whether
it's
it's
very.
like Nagasawa or like even Stormtrooper,
Mhm.
he take care of them or like think of them in the same way.
Yeah, there's something almost like robotic about his way of relating to other humans. It's almost like he doesn't know how to function as a human being. He doesn't really care for anybody. Is that's the vibe that I got from him. Like he doesn't care for anything. He's just like whatever. I don't know. Whatever. Like the only time where he actually made a decision was like at the end of the novel, which is I guess like that is a turning point for him. Like it's oh finally I'm making a decision. I'm doing something. I'm not letting life, drive me away unconsciously. I'm actually taking the course of my life. I'm actually doing something. So but the entire novel, he just let other people pull him away in different direction of life. And he doesn't really have ambition. He doesn't have like a direction in life, which is very relatable. But his sort of nonchalance about everything, on the one hand, is kind of charming, but on the other hand, it's just really, really frustrating. Because if I know if I met him or a person like that in real life, I probably really hate them.
I think the thing that is charming about him is that he's not giving me alpha male energy. He doesn't dominate people in conversation. And I was like, yeah, thank you. The bar is in hell. So that's something, yeah, there's something. But there's like so many good quotes, guy. Like in the beginning, I was like underlining every pages.
Give me your best quote.
You go first, Umi.
What do you say again?
Oh, I was saying you go first. You read this like 3 times.
I really like the passage how he said that the dead will always be dead, but we have to go on living. This resonate with me.
Yeah.
I also like the line where he talked to Nagasawa about fitting in,
Which one?
and he said, "Nobody likes being alone that much. I don't go out my way to make friends, that's all. It should lead to disappointment." Oh my god, that is me. It's literally
You know what?
me.
I think I understand why he's so charming. He's self-aware. Like, I'm a bad person, but at least I know I'm bad.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
me, there's like this scene in when he was going out with Hasumi, like a female character in the book. He was playing pool with her, which he has not been playing ever since Kizuki died, because on the day that Kizuki died, they played pool together. So he thought that he wouldn't want to pick it up again. And he played it, and he said he thought that the moment that he kind of like pick up the game again, he would think of Kizuki, but he did not. It was when he went out to the machine to get like drinks and stuff. When he was drinking Pepsi, that he remembered Kizuki, because that what they did every time they played together. When they finished their game, they would get a drink. And like that, I love that scene so much. Like it's makes me like it reminds me of my grandma, and like there are things that I cannot do anymore because they remind me of people I loved, and they're not here anymore. I don't love them anymore. So yeah, so like that scene is really nice. I think very soft and tender.
Wow.
one of my best friend, after high school, she passed away due to COVID, like last year. So, like the story about losing a best friend is like hitting home for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the grief is really good because for me, grieving is like a really strange thing because I didn't lose anyone until as of last year with my grandma, and I didn't
Same.
think I would be that sad about it actually because she was very old and I knew it was coming. But grief for me wasn't like super sad. It's more like it's like an itch in my system, and sometimes I think about it and it makes me sad. And that's exactly how this book kind of describes it. Or like, or in the beginning, there's like this quote where he said, like, I don't know, sometimes I think I've got this hard kernel in my heart and nothing much can get inside it. I doubt if I can really love anyone. And it was like, that's a good quote.
You know what? Like the entire first chapter, like that was so good, Nobel Prize worthy, right? But then it went downhill. I really don't understand why he ruined it. It was so good in the beginning. It was so good in the first chapter. Like, if you don't believe me, just go online and look it up and read the first chapter and tell me you don't want to read this book. It's impossible. Impossible.
Yeah,
Hey, having read like all the works of Murakami, do you agree that like all the male protagonists have the same personality?
They do. They do. Like, to me, like the protagonist in South the Border is basically
Or the
Toru,
older version of
but like
Toru.
older. So South the Border is like has a longer time span. Like we follow the male character from like
When he was in sixth grade.
right, so middle school to when he's like 37, 40 or something, right? But it's basically Toru. Like he doesn't care much for anything, and his college experience is very similar to Toru in a lot of ways. And yeah, like it's basically the same. And I've read what I talk about when I talk about running, and their is so many similarities between Haruki Murakami's actual experience in college, or his professions, or his person, his outlook on life, and Toru and the protagonist of South of the Border. I don't remember his name. They are so similar that it's so hard now for me to look at Murakami and say, like, oh, he's not sexist. It's just his characters that are sexist. To me, it's impossible to say that
Because
now.
Murakami seemed to me like he implies a lot of his, or like put a lot of his personality into his character.
Mhm,
It's
I
hard to
agree.
separate the two.
I actually like when he write like female protagonists, when he write from the perspective of a woman.
Okay.
One of my favorite short story, one of my favorite short stories from him has a female protagonist. So I don't know if it's because of his short story. I don't know if it's because, he was not super horny when he was writing that book, or is it just, the difference between the female point of view and the male point of view in his novels? I don't know.
Are you planning to read more work of Murakami, Kun?
I think so. I don't think I will buy them. Maybe I'll rent. No, not rent. Borrow from my library. Yeah, but I don't think I will buy them. I really like his writing style. I think I'll look for something that is not like as horny because I don't like the sex. That was not great sex for me. If you want to read good sex, read Sally Rooney. She writes very good sex. But yeah, but like Murakami, like for Norwegian Wood, I think one of the best thing he does is like the void in being young and don't have ambition. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about things that we hate about this book.
Oh my god, there's so many. I can't wait to talk about the thing I hate in this novel.
Okay, why don't you start?
The most disturbing scene is how, like, the infamous sex scene between a 13 years old and her adult piano teacher. It was especially unpleasant when it seemed to imply that the child was at fault for seducing an older woman.
Yeah, it's so unethical for you to write something like that, especially just because someone is a lesbian doesn't mean that they are a sex demon. And second of all, why are you portraying this scene as a rape, right? Like basically the perspective of that we were offered, basically that Reiko, a 31-year woman, was raped by her student who was 13 years old, I think. And which is like impossible. Like, if you are adult, how can you be raped by a child, right? And the depiction of it just weird. It feels like I'm reading something out of a male fantasy. It feels like watching lesbian porn produced for men. You know what I mean?
And the female characters feel very written by a male novelist, like veering between suicidal hysterics and manic pixie dream girl. Like there's no reality to these women. They only exist for Toru to bounce off of. And there's nothing real about Toru's relationship with any of the women. Like there's no insight into love or relationships whatsoever. And
Yeah.
on top of that, Toru doesn't seem to, like every time he recall the memories of any of the female that he say that he loved, he doesn't recall the intimate connection or like deep conversation. All he remember are their bodies and sexual encounters with them.
Yeah, I think for me, like when I read the blurb and like reading stuff online, I thought Toru is like super in love with Naoko, but when I read the story, it does not come off to me like that at all. I think they were just confused. Like they ended up tangled together, but I don't think Toru really loves her or she loved him. And my theory is Naoko is asexual. I think so. I don't know. That's why I kind of relate to her about like she has this weird thing, not weird, I think it's totally fine. When she like could not come when she has sex with her, who was that? With her boyfriend Kizuki. Yeah, and she can only like have orgasm or whatever when she that one time that she and Toru fucked, and then that kind of gives her the impression that something is so damaged about her that she could not have sex with anyone. And I was like, why does that sound oddly familiar? So that's my theory. Maybe Naoko is asexual.
Or maybe she's a lesbian. I don't
She
know.
she could be.
Compet, yeah. Compet is a thing, right? And affects a lot of women, including Naoko, perhaps. Okay, so one of the things that really bothered me about Midori is that she basically sexually harassed Toru. He could be literally having a lunch, having a sandwich, and she would be like, how about you tied me up and rape me? She would be like that all the time. She would have these very sexual fantasies like out loud with him. And it was so inappropriate and like so gross, so
But
creepy.
she seemed to have no respect of his boundary.
Yeah,
So
like who the fuck?
that is sexual assault, in my opinion.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
who the fuck talks like that to a person like
It
in
was so
public?
annoying because like Toru, I feel like Toru is a bit like submissive, but Toru expressed that he doesn't want to talk about it like multiple times. He's like, no, I don't want to talk about this with you, like something like that, and she just kept going.
I feel like he kind of enjoys it. The weird thing about Midori sex talking is that it's almost like she does it for the man more than for her.
Yes,
It's
to
almost
appeal
like
with him.
look how comfortable I am with sex. It's attention seeking and it's very cringy to read.
That's why I think that Mary is like written purely for the male gaze. Like she's good at cooking, she's good at taking care of men, she's kinky, she's into weird sex stuff, she like desire to have sex all the time. She appeals to a lot of insecure men in my opinion.
Yeah, and she kind of dumbs herself down.
Is that a form of gaslighting though?
That's gaslighting. Yeah,
It's
she's
manipulation. I would
super
say
manipulative. I think like
manipulation.
she like swing back and forth between like talking weird sex stuff and like like just weird things and complimenting Toru, like, oh,
For
you
the
talk,
most like mundane thing.
yeah, like, oh, you talk like in such a unique way, or like, oh, you're so special or something like that. And I'm like, he's not special. Yeah, and I can understand like why Toru like behaves the way Midori wants him to. Cause damn, girl, you got some skills. And I think like at the end it was really frustrating at the end where they kind of like get together. And I think she gaslit him into thinking that he loves her.
Yes, I agree.
When I finished the book, I was like, this book is just about everything to avoid in dating.
Okay. Yeah, Midori is like the character who ticks the generic box of being different, hiding the fact that she's the fantasy girlfriend of men, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys remember the scene where she takes off her clothes up in front of her dad's altar?
That's
Yes.
so bad. That was such a
Oh my
terrifying
god, that
scene.
is even more disturbing than the 13-year-old scene.
So her dad died, right? Her dad died. And then, in front of the altar, there's a picture of her dad. And Midori was like, Dad, look at me. Look how sexy I am. Like, look at my pussy. Like, you gave birth to this. Look at this. And I was like, why are you doing this? And then her sister, Midori's
Yes.
sister, was there too. And she was like, what the F are you doing? And Midori was like, why don't you come and join me?
Oh my god.
If I was her sister, I would have been scarred for life.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like,
I would move out immediately.
which she did eventually.
No, they still live
Rightfully.
together though. So
Clueless.
unnecessary.
We know she's kinky. We know she's into sex, right? we don't need another scene of her being weird, being disrespectful, basically like causing another person emotional damage. Like, can you imagine seeing your sister do that in
Oh
front
my
of your
God.
dad's picture? Like, that would be so fucking traumatizing, right?
That would
I
be
would blow
traumatizing.
my sister up.
Yeah. And
Right.
I like her dad. Like her dad, like before he died, he had like a one scene that he was in, and I liked him. And he seems like a really sweet old man.
And
I
he's
don't
probably
know.
shaking in his grave when Midori did that.
Yeah, oh my God.
Well, he did say that he rather Midori and her sister died rather than the mother. So I don't know. This is a
Oh
little
yeah, that was bad. I just
I wouldn't mind if my dad say that to him. Oh, it's too late.
I think so too. Yeah. See, that's why we need therapy. But the scene where he was like in the hospital, I think that was a really sweet scene.
yeah, it's kind of touching, honestly.
Yeah, when like Toru was eating cucumber and seaweed with soy sauce, and he's just eating because there's nothing in the hospital to eat. And the dad was like not eating at all because he was so sick. But like watching Toru eat the cucumber, he gesture to Toru that he wants to eat it too, and he crunched on the cucumber. And the way Murakami writes about that scene is like pretty, like I find it really nice, very pleasant to read.
Okay, so what else? What else do I hate about this? Oh, Reiko, obviously. She's so annoying.
And why did she advise Toru to hide the fact that he's in love with Midori from Naoko? That's manipulative of her, right?
Well, Naoko was in a really bad state of mental health, so like I understand that, but at the same time, she kind of encourages him to go with the flow, just go with whatever your heart desires. Like no, and then she fucked him.
That was the
In
plot twist I did not see
Naoko's
coming.
memory.
Yeah,
They were
like,
holding a funeral for her, and then they
Right?
decided to fuck in her memory.
it's so weird. The thing
And
that I was most uncomfortable about them fucking wasn't actually the sex, because by that time I was so indifferent about the sex in the book. But the thing that bothers me the most is that Toru kept going on about like how she looks 17. Like, oh, she's played the guitar and she looks so young, like she was 17 and stuff like that. And I was like, stop it, stop it now. It's so bad.
anyway, what makes me really uncomfortable with that scene is that Reiko was wearing Naoko's clothes.
Yeah.
To me, that's weird.
When
You know what? I cannot
Toru
do
and
that.
Yeah, that's so weird. I totally forgot that detail now that you remind me of it.
Right? Like taking off the clothes of your newly dead girlfriend from a different woman and then fuck her. It's just so fucking twisted. Like who does that?
Yeah, it's so weird.
not to mention that Reiko was 19 years older than Toru.
Oh yeah. It's weird because Reiko is kind of like Naoko's bestie, and like now you're fucking your bestie's boyfriend. It's
Basically,
it's basically like the first rule of feminism: never fuck your best friend, ex, or boyfriend.
I think that's the goal for even male or female friendship.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's the line
Reiko.
you get across.
Reiko at first was like an interesting character, I think. Like she was like weird, but
Quirky.
yeah, she was like she has some flair. I was like, oh, I might like this woman. And then she just got annoying, and she told the story about like being raped by this girl, because before she actually talked about the rape, she kind of set up the 13-year-old girl as like a pathological liar, and like she's so pretty, she's like 13, but she's actually a devil and she lies to everyone and that ruins my life. And
Reiko still sexualized a 13 years old girl.
yeah, I know, it's so weird.
She described all her desire and arousal toward the girl in question.
See, this is what I mean when I say like reading that scene. It's like watching lesbian porn produced for men.
Yeah, it was like she pretend like she's so helpless. Like, oh, it went on for a while. And I'm like, what do you mean a while? Yeah. I
Right.
cannot
Like by the
imagine it.
time you were getting basically a blowjob by, this child, you
Yeah.
cannot say that I have no choice. Like I was so helpless. I cannot do anything. Like, no.
Like she didn't use violence toward Rico.
The way he writes that scene was that he wants to depict like she's helpless, not in the way that she doesn't have like the physical power, but in like she realized that she likes the sex. So like she know it's wrong or forbidden, whatever, but she likes the sex. Like
But
that's kind of like the fantasy.
Okay,
See,
so this is my theory. Like Murakami wants to write a sex scene with a 13-year-old. But if you write Toru, who was having that sexual intercourse, that would be pedophilic, right? So he replaced that with another woman. So, now it's just, a lesbian story. It's fine if it's a lesbian story.
I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Murakami could have written like Rico any other story to contribute to her tragic past, but he chose that specific 13-year-old story.
Yeah.
I feel like I said that because I've read South of the Border. Basically,
Yeah.
there's also like a few scenes of like sex scenes between like 12, 13 years old. It's kind of weird.
Okay. Oh yeah, and Kizuki and Naoko were said to have like
Oh yeah.
gone to
Oh yeah, like
police.
hand jobs and stuff. I was so shocked about like how often the number 13 came up in this novel. I looked up the
Actually, they were 11 at the time.
I looked up the age of consent for in Japan and it's 13 and I was like, oh my God.
Oh, so that's why the lesbian child is 13.
Yeah.
Oh, just
That is very intentional, don't you think?
Oh,
I
definitely.
think,
If it,
yeah. So
because like if she was 12, that's under the age of consent, but now she's 13. That like
you
yeah.
know what? I'm gonna call my conspiracy theory. Like I think that's what was happening in his head writing that. He wants to write about pedophilic sex.
Yes, I
But
agree with
oh
her.
God, if I do that, like people are gonna be super outraged about this. So let's make this child barely the age of consent in Japan, and let's make it lesbian because lesbianism is hot.
Oh, and Rico, to me, seems like she had a thing for people who are several years younger than her.
We can see the parallel with Toru.
Oh
I
my
think
God,
one of
like, do you remember like her rape joke?
oh my God, it was
Oh
so
my god, that
bad.
is so disturbing. Like, who would think that is funny?
So there's the scene where like Toru came to visit Naoko and he stayed the night. He stayed with Reiko and Naoko, and they stay in separate rooms. Naoko and Reiko in the same room with different beds at different sites. And Reiko said that, oh, if you like come in at night and rape one of us, just know that like Naoko is on the left or something like that. But it's actually a lie. Naoko is on the right, and the one on the left is Reiko. And I read like a review or somewhere when someone pointed that out that like that's kind of like that scene. It reads as like a rape joke, but it's also kind of serves as kind of like a device for Reiko to express her fondness per se, her interest
Right.
to
It's
Reiko, to Toru, and
Yeah, she like displayed a particular interest in Toru since the first time they met.
yeah, I didn't notice that because I was more disturbed at the rape joke, so I didn't care
I feel like
for
it's
the
because she's a woman. Because like if we like reverse the gender, like let's say Toru was a woman and Reiko was a man. If Reiko was man, all of this would not slide through the radar.
yeah, and I must notice that all the characters like Midori, Toru, Naoko, Nagasawa, not Kizuki. Kizuki died at 17, but all of the young characters here are like 18 to 20. they're very, very young. So by the time Toru met Reiko and like she had that weird rape joke with him, he was probably 19, which is like basically a child. Yeah. So I don't know. I think like it didn't occur to me that they were that young until at the end of the novel when like Toru said about turning 20, and I'm like, what do you mean you're turning 20?
The book is written in a 40-year-old man's voice, but the characters are all like 17, 18, 19, 20 at the end of the novel. So they are super young.
Yeah, they're so young. They started fucking at 17.
11, remember?
No, Naoko and Kizuki started like kissing and stuff at like 11, 12. And I remember specifically they said that they started doing like hand job and stuff when they were 13, because 13 is the
Wow.
magical age.
Yeah, it's so weird because like in South the Border, it's also like that. It's also 13. It's either 12 or 13 in South the Border, which is, basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think there's much difference between 11 and 13, honestly.
In Kafka on the Shore, like there's this scene where the protagonist, who's very similar to Toru as well,
mhm.
was 15 years old and has sex with a 50 years old woman.
Oh, 50, you said?
50, yes.
Oh my God.
That's so
And
gross.
he was imagining her as his mother the whole
Ew, that's
Ew.
no. Please no.
I don't like sex like that. I
Please,
don't know. No.
This is just Murakami living his sexual fantasy, like mentally masturbating onto the page, and we're supposed to take this seriously. No, like this is his sexual fantasy, and I don't have time for that. Like he needs to tone it down. Like I said this jokingly, but it might as well been true. Like had he toned like all the sex things down, he might have gotten the Nobel Prize for literature.
I think Norwegian Wood as a novel, if like he toned the sex down and like explore more of the mental health and like the thing about being young, yeah, I think it would be a much, much better novel, because
You know what? I agree with that. Like had that novel written by like a female author that knows how to write sex, that know how to explore like coming of age themes, I think it would be like a total banger.
Yeah, this I really like the part where it's not about sex. Unfortunately, the books is like, oh, there's a lot of sex, guys. I kept saying it, but I don't know. I think he should have. I feel like it's such a shame. Like it could have been so much more. And I am like sex positive. Like I think, yeah, you're young. Like live your life. Go have some sex. Put a condom on. Whatever. But still, this is too much for me.
I was like severely disturbed after reading like Kafka on the Shore.
I haven't read that one, but from
Yeah.
what I've heard, it has even more sex apparently.
Yes, I mean very weird sex because the protagonist like lost his mother and sister a long time ago. Like they just ran away or something, and he has sex with two female, imagining them to be his mother and sister.
What the?
Ew.
What? No, that makes me want to die.
No, please.
That's
Oh God.
gross.
See, no, I can't.
Okay, the 50 years old woman is very similar to Naoko too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I really like Naoko. Well, not really like. I feel like I think she is the most tolerable female character in the whole novel. Oh, and Hasumi. Hasumi is nice, but there was
Yeah.
very little scene with
Oh
her.
my God. Hasumi is definitely a
I feel so
cancer.
bad.
Yeah, he's really.
Yeah, I feel so bad for her though.
Yeah. If you're really bad.
Yeah, I really think that she's a cancer.
Yeah, Nagasawa need to be sat on an electric chair. That's all I can say.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really I guess like I like Naoko in the sense that she doesn't really cause that much trouble. She just sit there and be mentally ill. I'm like, okay, girl, you're nice. That's good. And I feel really bad when I read the like second to last chapter or the last chapter where she died, because the way Murakami set up through like the letters between Toru and Reiko, I was feeling like maybe, maybe Naoko would get out of it. Like there's some kind of hope. I was being hopeful. And then she killed herself. And there was like nothing. She didn't leave anything, didn't leave any trace of her. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah, that's weird. It's a recurring theme in Murakami's work, actually. Like, there's this very beautiful woman, very mysterious woman that would charms you, but she has like some sort of mental illness. Like, she's not normal, okay? She's not like sane. And then she disappeared or she died.
I mean, rightfully so. I think like with Naoko suiciding, it kind of makes sense.
Like
But
all the women here are solely characterized by their trauma. They don't really have a personality to them.
yeah, I agree.
I would actually recommend this book and tell people to read it and avoid people like this in dating. Like, avoid everything that they do. Do not do anything of this, anything like that. No. So this can be like a really good like dating guide, but like in the opposite sense, like do not do any of this.
Okay, and I also noticed that why Toru is constantly criticizing Nagasawa and put himself at a more inferior morality than Nagasawa. Toru is still keep on hanging out with Nagasawa and feeding off of the women.
I see that in real life too. Like the boys in real life, and they see their problematic men, their fellow problematic boys, they still hang out together. And that's
Yes.
making me so mad.
And they refuse to confront their male friends
Yeah,
about
and it
their
happens all the
problematic
time.
behavior. I see it everywhere. Like from people I dated to like
Yeah.
classmates and everyone basically.
I know, right? Yeah, it really drives me off the wall. And I hate Nagasawa so much. That
Yeah.
dude
Yeah,
is
it's like I really like the Lily King's quote about how men are all cowards and the way they protect their cowardice. Like
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, Lily King. Lily King
Yeah.
is literally king. Everyone should read Writers and Lovers. I think it's a really good book.
Oh, there's also the thing with Stormtrooper. Like, I just hate whenever like there's this trope of introducing like a very like almost autistic character
because
to the story and then make fun of them like just for laugh, right? And it's just so disappointing. Like, I know this book was written like a very long time ago, but it's just disappointing. Like, it's so, first of all, it's very cliche, it's very boring, and second of all, why are you portraying neurodivergent people like that? Why are you doing that? It's not fun. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not artistic, I'm not like neurodivergent, I think. But if I was, I would feel really bad reading all these literature where people like me would be used for laugh only.
I know, like as a person who belongs to the Asperger, like autistic spectrum, I feel really weird and sick to my stomach reading the description of this character. Like Stormtrooper seems to me is the nicest guy in the entire novel.
Yes.
Yeah, he's so sweet. He just wants to make maps.
Yes, and he's not like enamored but born and sex like other guys. He's so clean too. Bonus boy.
Oh yeah. If a boy is clean, you know it. Like the bar is in hell. But if the boy is clean, then that's a plus point for me.
Anyway, do we have anything else to say about this book?
The horoscope or like zodiac signs of the Cancer. I mean, we should include these like
Sure.
properties. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your take on the zodiac signs of each character?
Oh, okay. Murakami said that Toru's birthday was in November, so I think that he's a Scorpio.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
That makes
Scorpio
sense.
is known for having like really high sex drive, so I think he fits
Oh my
everyone.
god.
Like,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Wow.
so Scorpio sun, I would say that he is a Virgo moon because all
A
the
very bad combination. Toxic
right,
one.
yeah, because like all the male Virgos that I've interacted with are kind of like that. They're like nice guys, but like not really.
Okay, and Nagasawa is definitely a Leo.
A Leo?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
I get
Yeah,
Leo vibes from him.
Nagasawa?
For me,
yeah.
it's either Leo or Aries.
Nagasawa?
Aries. I think he's more of like a Leo. I think so. He's
Yeah.
giving me mom's vibe. It's like my mom, that's my mom. I was like, Mom, what are you doing here?
Nagasawa?
Yeah.
Oh, really? How? Like
Okay.
what?
My
How?
mom is a Leo. She's very much like Nagasawa.
Is she very like driven?
Yeah, very driven, very like, I don't know, toxic positivity. And I don't know, it's a complicated situation because it's my mom. So I kind of just have to live with it.
When you say, oh, he's basically like my mom, the question that pops up in my head was like, wait, does your mom go around and like fuck all these men?
No.
Oh my god, that's same for me too. Oh, Nagasawa resemble my ex a lot. Do you guys see the resemblance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, who else?
Uh,
Naoko.
Naoko?
Naoko?
Oh,
I'm not
sorry.
sure about her.
Well,
We didn't
Naoko,
get.
do we know her birthday?
Oh, she's an Aries because she was born in April.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
could be in
remember that.
Taurus. Because
Taurus.
I don't really
She's more
feel
Taurus in
like
my
Aries
opinion.
in her. I don't really feel the Aries energy from her. So I'm gonna say Taurus because like Taurus are very like stubborn. Like you can tell them like, hey, do this and get better. They'll be like, okay, they never do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think she's in Taurus.
What
Taurus?
about Midori?
A bitch. Because she was like maybe Aries. She giving up Aries vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
I would say Aries too. She's very manipulative. I would say that's very Aries.
And compulsive.
Yeah, compulsive. I would say it's kind of Aries, but also Aquarius. So maybe she's Aquarius moon or Aquarius sun. I don't know. It's
And
just,
Rico is a Virgo. Right?
Reiko?
Yeah.
I think
Reiko,
so.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Reiko, it's Reiko Virgo because Virgo is like very precise with things. Like they want things like in a particular way. They are very perfectionist. I don't feel like that about Reiko. Reiko, she's like I feel like Reiko could be an Aquarius, but like a very bad Aquarius. Because Aquarius are known for being quirky.
What about Pisces?
Pisces, no, Pisces can be like manipulative, but like in a way like, oh my God, how could you do this to me? Kind of manipulation. So I don't think that's Reiko too. I don't either. Reiko can be a fire sign, can be Sagittarius. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, she can be
I
a
don't know.
Sagittarius.
Maybe.
Sagittarius
I'm not
like
sure.
looking for experience, right? Like looking for experience with younger men.
Oh god.
That's a thing.
Wow, that's it.
Oh god. Carnage. Isn't she like in the novel she's like 39 or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 39 or 37.
Yeah, and she talks about how she's old and wrinkly. And I'm like, you're 39. That's not actually
She
that
was
old.
described as very like wrinkly too.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like it feels like she's describing like some 50-year-old woman.
Yeah.
But she's
Not even 50.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. Anyway, so I feel like maybe Sagittarius, Aquarius vibe from her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Would you guys
maybe
recommend
Gemini.
would you guys recommend people this novel?
I think I would, despite my hatred for it. But I only advise reading it when you have established the like common knowledge of human decency and feminism. Otherwise, just stay away from this book.
Yeah, I agree. I
I
think
would
if I read it in high school, it would be very different.
Because like for such a popular book, like teenagers or immature adults have the tendency to like copy this character behavior, and it's not very healthy at all.
you know what? Like I'm actually glad I didn't read this book in high school because I know I would be like that person who copied what's her name? Naoko.
Well,
Oh,
I
not Midori. I
I
was
would
thinking you're giving me Midori vibes.
no,
If you
I'm gonna try to emulate Naoko but end up Midori.
disaster.
It'll be like that. Because like in high school, I went through this phase where I tried to be like this mysterious, quiet. Yeah, I feel like I would definitely have tried to emulate Naoko if I had read this earlier, maybe in high school. So I'm actually glad I didn't. I would not recommend this to people who's struggling with mental health issues, especially if you are sensitive to pedophilia and depression and suicidal themes, because like how many people suicide in this novel? So we have
More than
Kizuki,
3 people.
Hazuki,
Even
Naoko,
do you count Naoko's sister too?
Naoko's sister,
Yeah, like 4.
like 4.
That's a lot. That's a lot in one novel.
Mm.
Usually there's like one suicide attempt, not just yeah. And now here we have 4 people actually died.
If you are struggling with like mental health issues, maybe stay away from this one. Maybe stay away from Murakami in general.
Murakami.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would definitely recommend people to read it. I think it's best to read in your 20s. I don't think this one would age well if you're like 30 or 40s because these characters are so young. And if you're a teenager, I think you'd like it, but I think for me, teenagers are like children, like kids, and they have not like established like a general knowledge of the world yet to kind of be critical about this work.
Yeah, because I remember like there was this one guy in my class who read Kafka on the Shore and other books by Murakami, and he talked to me about those books, but all he talked about was the sex, and in like a very he enjoyed it, and like, oh my god, this is so dirty, you have to read this. And I was like, I'm concerned for y'all. Like, I'm concerned.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. Who was that? Was that in like our same class in high school?
Hmm.
Okay, I kind of guess who that is now. Okay. Anyways, yeah, Norwegian Wood. I think if you can get your hands on it, give it a read. I think it'll be better on a reread actually than the first read because you have gone through the trauma and you can now appreciate the parts that is nice about the novel.
So yeah, I guess this is the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. I sound like sick for this entire episode because I am. And if you enjoy this kind of content, please tell us in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.